What's up, guys? Messenger of the Cross, Pulse Point Media. I just wanted to talk a little bit for a minute about what God is teaching me through all this targeting and harassment and the great undermining and sabotage of basically all our activity. But there's so many times where I have thought to myself, there's just no human way through the things that I'm passing through. There's just no human effort, no working hard could ever, free me from the tactics that are being used, that are agreed upon, coordinated, and organized. But the other day I was looking at a book in the Bible, Micah chapter 6, 9 through 16, verses 9 through 16, and it's kind of funny because I was telling God this, about like, what do you want from me? I don't know how to get through this. There's no adjustment I can make that hasn't been gamed and preempted and destroyed. And it's like, what did Micah do, considering God had prevented and was the one that was preventing any moving forward, any ability to take care of himself? And it was seen by Micah as a judgment due to their relationships that were in the land. And basically it uses the word scant measure, but falsifying the balances by deceit. You know what I'm saying? Always doing under what's required, considering the damage and the abuse that these people hide. But there was a judgment on the land due to the scant measure and really these false balances. And that is what it's like in our lives. I mean, the game is rigged, and no human effort can allow you to manage things better. And how desperately I've seen and needed God in all of this. But really, verses 14 and 16 show that any human action to survive is not possible. And I really feel that God will take us to this position just to realize how great He is. So if you're seeing something in Micah chapter 6, there is a lot that people miss. But God really showed me His judgment in verses 13 through 16. It's not just punishment. It's the removal of human ability to make life work, quote unquote, by human effort. Everything you try collapses. Every survival strategy fails. Every attempt to move forward is blocked and stopped and collapsed. So, if God Himself is sovereign, like I believe, what is the reason for Him shutting down all human ability to survive? And really, what did Micah do about this? Well, it actually answers itself in chapter 6, but in the very next breath of the book. And it's really in, Micah 6, 9 through 16 is where God shuts down human ability to move forward. The judgment is total, in other words. There is no hope without God. And it says, you shall eat, but not be satisfied. You shall sow, but not reap. You shall tread olives, but not anoint yourself. You shall tread grapes, but not drink the wine. This isn't really random suffering. This is God showing us that He's actively blocking the fruit of human effort, because the way through is going to be involving Him. And this is how He gets Himself involved in our lives. It's really the reversal of Deuteronomy's blessings. It's like God is saying, the people of the land, you have built your life on deceit, so I will make your strength useless. And no human action can overcome this judgment. They cannot work harder or try smarter. God Himself is the one standing in the way of our purpose. and of our ability to resolve and solve and get out of and escape the tactics being used against us. So what does Micah do? Micah basically does the only thing a human can do when God has shut every single earthly door. He basically shifts from human effort to divine dependence. It's from self-reliance to Christ reliance. And this shift is recorded in the very next chapter, where Micah says in this despair that he's in, "Therefore, I will look unto the Lord. I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me." And you can see Micah 7, chapter 7, verse 7. So Micah's not there trying to fix the broken economy, trying to outsmart the judgment, trying to survive by a strategy, trying to escape the consequences. He just does one thing that judgment can't block. He turns his face towards God. So Micah's response I saw as a model for what to do when God is taking you through something that presses you out of measure above strength, so that you have the despair in your heart of not having a solution and being perplexed and not knowing which way to turn. So God is blocking human ability through all of this to cause us to rely and use him as our new economy. He is the way we tick. He is the way we function. He is the way we handle things. So Micah 7, it shows 4 moves. Micah basically immediately, when he sees all this and how there's no way through it, he stops trusting human systems. And that is what God is trying to get us more and more to understand. Stop trusting human systems. You know, Micah 7, 5 through 6, Micah is basically refusing to rely on his friends. He's refusing to rely on leaders. He's refusing to rely on family. You know, where the members of your own household become your worst enemies. He stops relying on family and even his wife in that chapter, where he sees the desperation of the situation and that desperate lostness in our loved ones, because the entire society is compromised. And so Micah just turns and accepts God's discipline, seeing the reason for it. Micah 7, verse 9, "I will bear the indignation of the Lord," he says, "because I have sinned against him." He doesn't go about fighting the judgment. He doesn't deny it. He doesn't blame others. He stands under it in humility, and he waits for God to reverse the judgment. And you can see this in Micah 7, verse 8. "When I fall, I shall arise," Micah says. And this is what I mean about resurrection, power, and life when we've been brought to the end of ourselves. Micah knows that only God can restore what he himself has shut down. And he trusts that God will vindicate him in chapter 7, verse 9, and he will bring us forth to the light. Micah says, "He will bring me forth to the light." So Micah's survival is on a deeper level. He realizes in the middle of all these calamities and tribulations and trials and vexations and the breakdown of society, the breakdown of family, where he feels this pressing and he knows everything is beyond repair. It's incurably sick. But Micah recognized that his survival is not based on his ability. It's based on God's mercy. And this matters because Micah 6, this judgment is designed to force Micah 7, chapter 7. And faith ends up in being embodied in Micah. Micah 6 removes human strength, in other words, human strategy, human survival tactics, human control. And then Micah 7 replaces it with divine strength, divine rescue, divine vindication, divine mercy. So the collapse of chapter 6 is really, I would say, the doorway to the restoration of chapter 7. So the answer is simple, but yet it's super profound. Micah survived all these elements in his environment and the breakdown of everything by doing nothing human. He survived by turning to God when all human ability was shut down and stopped. He looked to God. He waited for God. He accepted the discipline. He trusted in the restoration. He refused to rely on his closest friends, his relatives, his wife, the people around him. He anchored himself in God's character. And this is what is tested as everything else gets burnt up. And the only one left standing in you is Christ. Micah 6 shows the end of human effort, in other words. And Micah 7 shows the beginning of divine intervention. So there is severity that we see in Micah 6 with a clarity that he has that most people will never touch. You know, people are too busy trying to escape and trying to get away from what God can do when he can do immeasurably more than all we can ask or even think or imagine or believe. It is his ability that he's trying to press us to and trying to get us to be partakers with. So verse 13 is not a side detail in the chapter. It's the center of the judgment. It goes beyond, just blocking human effort. It reaches even to the body itself. In Micah 6:13, I will make you sick in striking you, it says. I mean, guys, the line is brutal. The line drawn in the sand is intentional. And it means that God is not merely frustrating their plans. He is there weakening their strength. He is removing their capacity to even function. He is touching their physical vitality. And this is the same pattern seen in Deuteronomy 28, where the covenant breaking leads to wasting, disease, fever, weakness, exhaustion. So in Micah 6, God is saying, I will not allow you to continue living off corruption anymore. I will drain the strength that fuels that rebellion and independence from me. This isn't a random sickness. It's a judicial sickness, a divine act that exposes the futility of self-reliance. And we are brought into the endless riches of Christ and all that he is and all that he's been made available for, and just to impart his life to us. And it is an exchange. The more I surrender, the more he is making himself known. And really the sickness is part of the same judgment that blocked Micah's survival in all of this. I mean, verse 14 and 15 show the collapse of every survival mechanism. You eat, but you stay hungry. You store, but you lose everything. You plant, but you never harvest. You press olives, but you never get the oil. You tread the grapes, but drink no wine. To me, that's like a total shutdown. Verse 13 adds a deeper layer. And even if they tried to push through the judgment, their bodies would fail them. So God left nothing out in his all-encompassing grace, in which he tries to set a person up to receive out of his fullness just the accomplishments of Christ. And it's not just, your work won't succeed. It's you won't have the strength to work. So God is cutting off. He's the one doing the pruning. And it is pruning to that external productivity, to the internal vitality that we have in our own strength. Both outside and inside in my life have been shut down. So why would God make them sick, like in the book of Micah? Because the sickness is symbolic of the deeper spiritual condition. They made the land sick with deceit, with exploitation, with false balances, with scant or small measures with violence and with lies. So all God does is mirror their corruption back to them. Their sickness is a revelation. It's a consequence. It's a divine exposure. It shows them that they've really become these things. And Micah's response is shaped by this reality. This is why Micah does not respond with, we need to work harder. We need to just pick ourselves up by the bootstraps. We need to fix the economy and everything will be well. We need to rebuild trust. He knows in his intimacy and fellowship with God that God has shut down all strength, all strategy, all survival tactics, all self-reliance. So Micah does the only thing left to do. I will look to the Lord. I will wait for the God of my salvation, and my God will hear me. Those are the three things that I took from Micah 7, verse 7. But Micah's entire posture is built on the recognition that human effort is now impossible. It is impossible to rely on yourself to get through these things. And he doesn't fight the judgment. He doesn't try to escape it. He doesn't try to outwork it. He surrenders to God's discipline and waits for God himself to restore. And we can enjoy him through all this process, trusting that he's handling everything, that he's managing everything, and that it's not us. But the sickness is really the turning point. Micah 6 ends with sickness, futility, collapse, and divine resistance. But Micah 7 begins with waiting, trusting, accepting, and rising in this resurrection life. So the sickness is the hinge between the two chapters. And it forces the shift from, I can fix this, to only God in his greatness can step in and do something big enough, do something effective enough that will transform our whole being inside, so that we're no longer living out from ourselves, but we are living unto him. We are related to him in the details. That means whether big things or small things, we are learning to be calibrated to his spirit. And our participation, we get so much out of this supplied life that I would say that the Christian life is an impossible life. And the only one that can turn the other cheek and go the extra mile is Christ himself. And this is who is in us. This person, this type of disposition that God himself gives us as a gift in the life of Jesus, as he imparts the very Christ to us. It's not imitation. It's not me trying to get through things. I am enjoying God through it all, whether well-fed or hungry, because the condition and the environment have one meaning to me, and that is just simply, it is an escort to fellowship, to call, to interact with this Christ. And out from that, the life that can do it appears and is revealed in us. And this is a life that always wins, a life of continual victory. And what's impossible for man becomes possible with God. It's all an escort to lead us to the end of ourselves so that we might make this transfer and walk by newness of life, a life that can, and a life of overcoming, and a life that says that we're more than conquerors through him who loved us. And it's not about us changing the circumstances, even though we would like them to change. God has shown us where we end and he begins. And this is the entry point for learning how to abide in Christ and take him as your life. It is moment to moment, making that transfer from self-effort and pushing and striving and trying to make the targeting go away, to enjoying Christ in the face of it. And it's in that enjoyment that his life, so much of his life, gets imparted to us, that the people around us start seeing the very life of Jesus revealed in us and our mortal bodies. And this is what troubles them so much. And it troubles their demons because they have nothing on Christ and they don't have a handle on anything when it comes to God having the solution. And that solution is to give you Jesus. And that is the real living Jesus. It's not what would Jesus do. It is what is he doing right now, because he's alive. And the proof that he's alive, that he's been raised from the dead, is when countless times you've been handed over to death for Jesus' sake. But that life of resurrection just keeps coming through you. That impossible condition and circumstance has done one thing. It's revealed that you're a son of God. It's revealed that you have resurrection life, a life that's been raised from the dead. And it was only through the death process of all these things failing us that we realize we have this other orientation. We are orientated to the Spirit, and the Spirit is our life. And it is our true identity, deeper than your thoughts, deeper than your will, deeper than your emotion. So I just wanted to say, guys, this is something that encouraged me today. I am just hearing from the Lord and just opening myself up, because the types of situations and circumstances and pressures that many of us go through as targeted individuals, people have no idea. They don't want to know, first of all. They don't want to be conscious and become aware, because that means responsibility. That's just one aspect of it. But it terrifies them to see somebody, where these people have dished out their best in trying to destroy you, and yet you just keep rising from the dead, so to speak. And it's a very real power and dynamic operating in us. It is a principle of death, burial, and resurrection. That death allows us to put off the old man. It allows us to put off that natural carnal human life, and allows us to be clothed with immortality. It allows us to be clothed with eternal life. And when we're walking in that consciousness and awareness that we have eternal life, and that the enemy has tried to put us to death time and again, whether it was poisoning you, whether it was hitting you with directed energy weapons, it didn't matter what it was, because in the end, you have a life that's indestructible. And God loves to show that to our enemies. He loves to reveal his power and his nature and his person. And it's all for the one that is surrendering absolutely. And that is why I start to see that when my human effort fails, when everything is blocked, when they stop, they get in the way, I just see God as bigger than them, is all I'm trying to say. I see God as sovereign and in total control, even of my enemies. And it's all for my benefit in the end. Even though there is no, temporary benefit and reward as I pass through this life, it's losing all things for the sake of gaining a knowledge of him, because he doesn't want to compete. He wants our total attention, and he's worthy and deserving of the reward of his sufferings. He paid a heavy price to, purchase us, to let us know that our life is not our own and that we're bought and paid at a price. And he will show you the value of what he did for you, practically, moment to moment, as the environments try to destroy you, as the people that were supposed to love you try to destroy you. And you just have this sorrow in your heart for people that are lost, going the wrong direction, and people that feel that they need to fill their insecurity with, a sacrifice, when the sacrifice on the cross was already done. These people want to offer us up on their altar that they've created for themselves and for their ego, and will do anything to get the fuel, the bad reactions from us, to fuel that fantasy that they're a hero, they're a savior. They don't want to look at themselves. And so this is why I'm saying today, God is showing me that without him, I can do nothing. And apart from him, it's categorical. I can do nothing. And he takes me into environments that press me out of measure, above my strength, so that there is this sentence looming over me, the sentence of death in my heart, but it's for a reason. It's so that I might not trust in myself as the source, that I might not trust in myself, but in God which raises the dead. So this is the key, making that transfer and walking by newness of life. And I haven't claimed to be perfect at it. I haven't arrived. I don't think I'm holier than thou. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying that this is what kind of revelation comes to me through my day when everything's breaking down, when everything is collapsing, and when there's nothing but misery, pain, wickedness, lies, deceit, and the scant measure of these abusers doing under what's required when they get caught for the abuse that they do. They always want to keep the problem ongoing and open-ended so that they can maintain control. So they're never fully going to commit to fixing anything that they've done, even if you're lucky to get them to admit and do that, which most people aren't. But God is playing a game of chess with these people, and one day you will say like me, checkmate. And that is what my encouragement is for today, is to encourage other targets that God, when he is on the throne and he is in control, he will checkmate your enemies and tie their hands in many different ways. It doesn't mean that it's going to stop. It doesn't mean that it's over. It just means that you start interpreting and seeing the setup to have more of him and less of you. Love you guys.
It's funny how these pastors, they want to blame men. They want to, simplify a complex system of control and domination. And, it's pathetic. It's actually pathetic to me that they can simplify something that has been structured, that they're a part of, because, the 501c3 pastors, they are on the payroll of the federal government, basically. And through their nonprofit tax status, they have to follow conditions, and those conditions are given to them by the federal government. If you want federal subsidy money, you're going to say, Jesus wants to get your shots. He wants you to get your shots. And you're going to even quote the Bible and say, Jesus would do it. You know what I mean? And that's a Freemason devil. I mean, that is a devil. You know what I mean? Like, not that the person themselves is a devil, but the spiritual battle that we're in. The battle is not against flesh and blood, obviously, but we have seen basically the end of America. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's basically a number of steps that open societies that have been open and free societies. There's this transfer that happens to have a tyranny, to have a dictatorship, and the fragility of like a real true democracy is not really, we haven't had that, or a free market economy where they just blame capitalism, but we haven't had a real form of capitalism. So there's always these steps that are taken, and I would say that, what we see is a tyranny. I mean, that's what we see. And you can see it whether it's with police interaction or, just on the media where, they're constantly invoking an external and internal threat. That's one of the classic marks that the big bankers, the International Monetary Fund and the big banks, the European centralized banking system, does when they enter a country and buy up the infrastructure of the country on fractions of the dollar through controlled inflation and deflation. But it's always about invoking an external and internal threat. And of course, they move to the next step with, establishing secret prisons. It's all about secrecy. It's all about establishing secret prisons. And of course, developing a paramilitary force. It's these third-party proxy groups like Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the Proud Boys. All these groups are funded and controlled by the big banks, and they're designed to radicalize society. And of course, the CIA is totally behind that. They're totally the ones that are involved in doing that. And, saying that could get you killed, but I mean, it's the bottom line. It's the third-party paramilitary force that they use, dudes in regular clothes that are trained, organized revolutionaries that are there to destabilize and have an excuse for a police state. But, then they move to surveilling ordinary citizens. That's not a problem, is it? You know what I mean? Like, the pastor should be talking about this rather than talking about how men need to just work harder and stop playing video games. You know what I mean? I mean, for any real man that sees the truth and sees the nuances of this takeover in our country and the evisceration of jobs, I mean, that's what I saw in Portland, Oregon, was, Antifa destroying the mom and pop businesses to make us more dependent on the government. That is communism, and that's why they allow it. And the big banks fund it. And literally the police are a part of it. And they put bricks on the street corner just so that, Antifa has bricks to throw at the cops. And literally it's totally corrupt. But then they start to, after these creations of a paramilitary force or third-party proxy group, the takeover moves to surveilling ordinary citizens, and that's what I complain about, is the open surveillance and using AI to surveil ordinary citizens way before they announce, these large language models of AI, like the ones we see like Grok and all these other large language models that are there to help us. But they've been in place by the military for a long time, and they've used it to surveil and target and profile police. But they start surveilling ordinary citizens, and then, there's always this infiltration of citizen groups, so it doesn't matter. There is no group that is grassroots. It's always, run at the top by the FBI, the CIA, and they use it as a dragnet, these citizen groups where they infiltrate, whether it's the church, the 501c3 church. It doesn't matter what group it is. No group is free and grassroots. It's completely controlled and led by the FBI, CIA, and all these groups, the threat fusion centers. And it's just complete dragnet. But then, of course, there's this chilling effect of arbitrarily detaining and releasing citizens. That's another mark of this communist country that we live in right now, where Americans are more brainwashed than North Korea, literally. Literally, because they think we vote, they think, we have freedoms, they think, and quote the Constitution, which has been suspended under emergency rule and crisis management and under the bankruptcy, and then they have continual crises to have crisis management. So we went into this suspension of the architecture of the United States under the Banker Act that was passed. And like over 80 years, the Constitution has been suspended, but pastors don't want to talk about that. And it's right in the congressional record and in many Senate reports, and has been entered that the United States is insolvent, and this third party, the Federal Reserve, comes in to manage the bankruptcy. And so we see a pageantry government with employees, rather, of the Federal Reserve to consolidate the debt, to consolidate the bankruptcy. That's what we see. So they arbitrarily detain and release citizens. That's the chilling effect. That's community-based policing. That's, harassing innocent citizens and dragnetting and profile policing. But they always, move to targeting key individuals. And that's what I complain about, and then of course there's the restriction of the press, and they use the press as, the arm and branch, another branch, the Ministry of Truth, 1984, George Orwell, and they use the press like a weapon and, call for, you saw that with COVID, you know what I mean? If you don't get the shot, then you're a dangerous threat to our society, and you need to lose your job, and you need to be cast away by your family. And these pastors that talk about men need to stop playing video games are the very ones calling for, family members to reject you if you don't go along with this whole system. But, anybody that casts criticism is deemed as somebody that's committing espionage, and, dissent is considered to be treason. And that's why they call and label people terrorists, because, if you dissent and you criticize it's espionage and treason. That's the way they treat it, and that's why they suspend a person's rights like me and then go after that person until they're eliminated. And it's all about non-touch torture and keeping the person preoccupied with one crisis after the next, so that all the resources, time, energy, and money go to surviving them rather than living your life. And it's a way to control you. But then there's this complete and total subversion of the rule of law, and really it is our task to expose this stuff and to make people realize that, these steps have been taken in our country. And, we see the marks of this in other communist nations where they set up a tyranny and a police state. And then, they've got everybody looking into the future as if it's going to come someday when it's already here, and that's another propaganda tool, a real bait and switch, like we're focused on it coming when it's here, and it's been here for quite some time. So I just want to make those points really quick, just to kind of shame the pastors that don't understand that it's not just because, and again, the feminism is part of communist propaganda. I mean, it is directly tied to the divide and conquer and identity politics, which is a part of communism and the divide and conquer. I mean, Karl Marx even wrote about it. So that's why these pastors are blaming men and under the Jezebel spirit and more concerned about, their income and not offending anybody, because they're state-authorized, state-run pastors that are on the payroll of the federal government who is moving, against the citizens, and it's all about, the right-left, because that is part of the divide and conquer. They want people to take sides and then fight one another so that the true power structure can never be seen. And that is the bottom line. And of course, there's this duality with these Satanists. And Trump might do a couple good things, and then people will get on the media and say, oh, look, he's good, he's for us, he's doing all these good things. Because this is the duality of these Satanists. They don't just do evil things, they do good things to get people believing in them and trusting in them and legitimize the fake power structure. So people argue, well, Trump is doing this and he is doing that, but I don't take either side. I reject the right-left paradigm, and I reject the false choices that are given to us. And until people see that, we're just going to be a lost society. And, any society that could target innocent people and, the do-gooders get recruited and they, have their house, their wife, their nice car, their nice job, and don't get bothered, and just can have this cognitive dissonance and turn a blind eye to what they're really doing. No conscience. Their conscience is seared with a hot iron. I mean, no conscience. I'm just saying that verse. I don't know if it's changed or not, or if that's the right way to say it, but it's the whole point is their conscience is no longer there, and they have this dissidence where they can, ruin somebody's life, but they think they're doing good. They think they're killing us and doing a service to God. That's the mentality, and they can go back to their families, back to their homes, back to their nice posh jobs, and they get new cars and new things, and that is sufficient for them, in this materialistic society, and they feel like they're heroes, and they feel like they're saviors, and then when you confront them, they're victims. Poor me, feel sorry for me, but I don't feel sorry for them. I know the game, I know the act and the performance of manipulators and liars who can go to bed at night and sleep just fine, like the Bible used to talk about the wicked, they can't go to sleep until they do evil, basically. I'm paraphrasing, but they can't go to sleep until they do evil. You know what I mean? And that's the way the hearts of Americans are mostly. Very materialistic, very narcissistic, and there is this confirmation bias and total cognitive dissonance that they can't connect the dots, that the reason you're being judged and the reason all these hardships are coming is because you want to do evil and be a hypocrite and just pretend like the evil that you're doing isn't seen by God as you live in your nice house and as you don't get bothered and harassed and tortured in the process of elimination and isolation. And, many Americans, and especially Christians in America, there is a war happening against Christians. Why don't the pastors talk about that? The police state. Why don't they talk about, innocent men that are Christians that speak the truth and get called treasonous and then be labeled terrorists and then get targeted to death. Like why don't they talk about that instead of making the problem video games and other such things? And believe me, I can understand people want to quit because there's no upward mobility and there's no benefit to the hard work and labor. So of course people want to give up and quit and say, this whole system is designed to fail and it's rigged. So why try? Well, the only way to succeed is to be pretty much a sellout and to go along with Satan. And since he's the God of this world, blinding the minds of unbelievers, and that's what they do. They have to be a part of the cult, a part of a club. And let me tell you, when I was in Oregon, I got asked to be in some TV shows and some movie stuff. And they have a production studio out there producing a couple TV shows like Leverage and Grimm and things like that with like Anthony Hutton and a couple other actors out there that I was working with. And, doing lighting and doing, acting and stuff like that. But, dude, I'm telling you right now, one day I was at this movie set and they took this bus over there and you park your vehicle off set and then they don't want people to know where they're filming. So they pick you up on a bus, take you over to the movie set that they're filming at. And, I was thrown into this role and it was very impromptu and the producers loved it. And next thing you know, I'm looking for my wardrobe and my wardrobe is stolen and taken from me. And I'm wondering, where's my wardrobe that I brought with me? And, a couple suits and stuff like that. And, the producer took it. And I'm like, oh, great, what's going on here? And so he invited me to his office and, made me the offer. He's, hey, look, you're a funny guy. You got some wit about you, and have you ever thought about acting and like acting full time? Would you like to do that? And I'm just sitting there like with my Bible in my backpack, and I bring out my Bible, and he almost had a heart attack. I'm like, no, I'm a Christian, I'm good, and like I'm just doing this for some extra money, and like I really don't want to go that direction because I know what you're all about. I know what you people are all about, and I was just starting to wake up to that. And really, it's true, everything that they say. So when I rejected him, I was never invited back. They decided to terminate my further work, and I was never invited back. But that's the way they roll. And if you don't go along with it, if you don't, take the cocaine and go to the trailer that all the main actors are in, and they invite you and try to offer you sex and try to offer you cocaine and all these other things. And when you reject that, then you're the bad guy and you're targeted. And that's the way it is in Hollywood, and just climbing any corporate ladder of success. The higher you go, you get approached and you get asked to be part of the club, and you shut your mouth and you do what you're told. And that's the bottom line. That's the controlled economy. That's the way things really work. And it doesn't matter if it's the movie industry. It doesn't matter if it's a big corporation. They're a big cult and a big connected, cult. And if you want to be successful, true wealth, and you want to be a made man, well, you've got to join the cult. And that's something that I was not willing to do. But anyway, I just wanted to say this. Praise the Lord Jesus. And I hope to talk to you later. God bless.